Use your phone as your mic?
No.
Oh.
At home I use my phone as my camera, but here it's just the mic that's in here. That's why it's a little tinny. Okay, so we're doing the knob. So basically, I'm going to have this part here. I'm not going to worry about that because that's going to be covered by this.
Right.
So I'm just going to let that edge kind of go. So I'm really only worried about this outside. And then the first thing I'm going to look at is, like, what are the major shapes, right? And what I'm seeing is I've got kind of these, I think these are called trapezoids,
Yeah,
right?
trapezoids.
Right? And then what you want to think of is they are turning at an angle, and that means that they're going to catch light or cast a shadow. And some of them are turning closer, and some are turning further away. Some of them, like these three, I can't even see the other side.
Right.
And they're all roughly the same value of gray.
And it's not that good of a picture either that I've chosen.
Right. I mean, and that's one value of having it be vector is, at some point in time, it gets pixelated, even high-res stuff. But there still is, if you look here, there's a little bright spot here. It gets darker up here. And then over here, it gets a little bit of a darker value along that edge. And so there's still some detail in here. So here's what I would do. I would build a basic structure, okay? And then that's going to give us kind of one level. And so I'm going to come in here on my layers panel. And I'm going to close all this out, and I'm going to create, we'll call this knob base. And then I'm going to create another one on top of that. I'm going to call that knob details. Okay, and I'll show you why I'm doing two different levels here in a minute. But first off, we basically just have, a square with a thing. So I'm just going to start with a rectangle. Go like this. I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. And then I'm going to add some anchor points here and here, but I want to make sure that they're kind of aligned with each other. And so I'm going to add a few, and then we'll align them. Okay, and then I'm just going to take these and this one here and this one here. Kind of raise that up there. This goes higher. Now, one thing that I just realized that I could do is I don't also need to do this up top.
You're gonna reflect it?
Yeah, so I could reflect it, right?
And I do that a lot with the logo project.
Yeah, and it'll make it way easier. So I'm actually going to come down here like this. I'll just grab this whole thing, and then I'm going to hit O for reflect, Alt-click, roughly in the center. I'm going to guess wrong anyway. Then I'll come over here, and I'm going to reflect it across horizontal axis, click preview to make sure, make a copy of it. Okay, and then I'll just bring this up like this, right about like that. Grab this, Shift-M for Shape Builder tool, combine it. Okay, so now I've got a nice shape, symmetrical, okay, and it's looking pretty good. Okay, and I just want to kind of eyeball some of these choices that I've made and just, okay, that looks okay. That's a little high. So I'm just going to bring this down just a little bit. All right, so that's about all I need my guides for. So I'm going to get rid of those. Okay, so now that's kind of my base. And like I said before, the eyedropper tool will get you kind of in the ballpark. Notice how much darker this looks than where the whole thing looks?
Yeah, I've been noticing that as I've been pulling.
Yeah, and so I like to kind of get in the ballpark and then dial it in. So we'll go into the color, okay? And it's interesting because everything seems to have this kind of green hue. And so that's just kind of interesting. So
does it?
Well, if you have this eyedropper going on this metal, the environment around everything is going to come into play as well. And so gray isn't real. Gray doesn't really exist, right? So if you've got red stuff around this, then it's going to be slightly red. Down here, you're going to pick up these warmer tones of the brown along this edge. Okay, inside of here is going to reflect kind of those yellower tones along these edges. And so adding a little bit of that, adding a little bit of a hue to your gray adds a little bit of a realism as well. So sometimes I just bring the saturation over just a little bit. not even that much. So I'm going to start with kind of a mid-tone gray. And then I'm going to do a draw inside. So draw normal, draw behind, draw inside. This is on the lower left-hand corner of the toolbar. And from there, I'm just going to start doing a few of these deals. So right about here, you'll notice it gets darker right here. And so I'm just going to take this
Because
color.
I would have built 2 separate shapes for that, but I guess that's a better idea.
Yeah, and so let me explain the
not-
way that I'm thinking this through is I'm thinking about each of these ridges, the little trapezoids, as going on this other layer on top. And that'll give us this silhouette so that all the shading and highlights that we do on the main piece that doesn't have the ridges cut out of it will kind of flow.
Well, then shouldn't you be putting
stuff.
that on the other knob base later then if it's a shadow that's going to be underneath the ridges?
Let's watch this develop and we'll see how it goes because I could be wrong. I'm gonna do effect blur Gaussian blur, and I'm just gonna try to get this gradation here of color. And so I'll do a preview, and then I'll pull this out. And right now I'm just looking at like how much distance that is, because I'm gonna blend it here in a minute. So now I'm gonna go multiply, which makes it darker a little bit, and then I'm gonna kind of knock this back. It's actually pretty dark, so I'm going to leave it pretty high. Okay, so that's good there. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to make a copy of this and move it down here a little bit, but not there. And I don't need this necessarily to be a circle, so I can kind of pull some of these things out. And this seems to go more like this. I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I can still tweak these later. Then I've got another one, and I'm just going to go copy paste in front. Oops. So I had just that path selected, not the whole shape. Okay, so copy paste in front. That'll give me the whole thing. And then I'm just going to get the shadow that's cast from the case of the watch onto this edge. So I just want to kind of have just a little bit of that edge. Okay, and then from there it gets brighter down here. So I'm going to take this big guy up here. Oh, come back. This guy here. And I'm going to go copy paste in front again. And I'm going to bring that down here and make this much smaller. And I'll bring this over. I hate when it does that. Okay, so let me get back to Command Y because I lost that shape. Here it is. Okay, so grab that shape. Alright, so now we need to get out of draw inside because it's messing everything up. So if I double click, it'll go into isolation mode. I want this shape. Okay, so this is where we need to start labeling things because it's getting too confusing. So I'm going to come in here and let's go. Oh, this is all supposed to be in the knob base. I'm going to put that down here like that. So click group. Where's the little one? So that's top dark. What is this one?
There it is.
So that's the one I want. So I want this one, and I'm going to make this a highlight. So small, highlight, right. Okay, so then I'm going to take it, I'm going to move it over. And I'm going to put it on the bottom like this. And then I'm going to take it, and I'm going to go and be very bright. And I want you to be screen. And then I'm going to kind of straighten some of that out. Okay, rough thing here, and we can kind of continue kind of as needed. So, you know, I can still come in and grab, you know, these different shapes and whatever. Now the reason that I'm clicking outside of the shape and still getting the shape is because of the gradient. Sorry, because of the Gaussian blur causes the shape to expand past the boundaries of the path as it blurs, and so sometimes it can be kind of hard to grab stuff. Okay, but now that we've got that, I'm going to lock this layer down. So that's the base. I'm going to go back into the details here. Okay, and I'm going to just create a basic a basic shape roughly about this size. So I'm going to turn these on so that I can get my kind of measurement for a rough shape here. And I'll just split that in the middle. So I'm just going to start with a square. Okay, and I notice that it sort of lines up with this edge, but it's actually outside of it, and it kind of curves a little bit, and it curves. There's a little bit of a curve here as well. So we'll deal with that in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to add anchor points on either side. Pull this out like this. Pull this out like this. And let's align those to each other. Like that.
All right, thanks. Appreciate
Okay,
it. We'll see you.
then I can kind of cut this in half. And so I'm just going to take a shape, grab this, okay, cut this out. Okay, so now I've got 1/2 and 1 full in case I need the full. I probably won't need the full based on this, but I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to go piece by piece, and I'm just going to say, is this bright or is it dark? And we'll just start with kind of those values. So this is going to be brighter. Okay, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it down like that. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And each of these changes shape just a little bit, and because it's small, you can kind of just eyeball it. And it'll kind of turn into details. This one, for some reason, is really muted, and so I'm going to take that. I'm just going to darken it up. It's still brighter, but it's very close to what's behind it. And this one gets very tall from that angle, and is not as bright. Notice that this and this are brighter. I think I missed one. I need another one.
Yeah, there's one more.
Yeah, so I need another one. So let's put another one in there. Okay, so this one is going to be about like that. Okay.
So that one next, the darker one is bright, but that one you're clicking on now is a little bit muted.
Yep, right. And so I just kind of knock it back just a little bit until it looks about right. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm looking back and forth and comparing, right? And so back and forth and comparing. This one seems maybe a little dark. And so we can kind of come in and just kind of go back and forth. Now, in between each one of these, they jog back, right? So I could flip one of these over and do that, or I could draw a shape or whatever. But you see that little bit of a jog, and there's darker right along here. And so all we're really doing is we're just trying to figure out. I'm just going to go copy, paste in front, and then I'm just going to drag this up like that. And then I'm just going to make that darker. Okay, that's way too dark. And so I can kind of pull that back. Okay, and this is also way too dark. Okay, and then in between those, sometimes we get this little ridge kind of a bright spot. So let's do the other side as well. So I'm just going to grab each one of these. I'm just going to come down. Copy, paste in front, pull this up, make that darker. Okay, and then we'll grab this one, copy, paste in front, pull that up. Okay, I might have to zoom in here. Okay, and this one is going to get darker. That one's there. We need this one. Okay, so now we can start to kind of, get these kind of line up with each other. So I'm going to use my white arrow tool. Really, I'm just grabbing the ones that are super obvious. so that they don't have weird stuff. You can grab this and just join them. So I'm pressing Command-Shift-J, which does not seem to be doing anything, or my computer is freaking out. Ah, there we go. The menu showed up and I wasn't looking at that part of the screen. Okay, so since this is locked, I can just click and drag here. Do the same thing. So Command-Shift-J, both. There we go.
What is Command-Shift-J?
So that is object path average.
Okay.
That'll kind of put them on top of each other. So object path average. There we go. So now we're kind of getting rid of some of these more awkward kind of corners and angles. All right. So if I want to take this, I can just take this and I can go, let's just flip it up like that and make a copy and then delete what we don't need. And then our curve will be roughly the same. And then we can kind of just adjust from there. Now there's definitely like scientific ways to do this and mathematical ways to do this, but I'm less concerned about that because I'm more concerned with how it looks. And so there's definitely ways that I could be doing, you know, that would make it so that, oops, so that it would make it so it's more mathematical. This is all, they're all equal shapes wrapped around a cylinder, and so I'm sure there's people much smarter than me that could do that. I'm going to align all those with each other because that's going to bug me. There we go. And then get it in. There we go. Okay, so up close, this doesn't look great, right? But this is part of, this is going to be part of that shape that that you don't look up close, and so a lot of it is going to be really hidden. So now I'm just trying to eyeball what's going on. This should probably be much darker. There's just this big dark spot over here, and then right here it gets a little bit brighter.
It's like there's a rectangle at the top of each trapezoid.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's just look at what this looks like from far away. Okay, so back out of that. Okay, now we're doing okay, but now I'm noticing like my shadows on my base layer, way too dark, right? Compared to this, they're much more muted. And so I can go back into my base layer, unlock it, okay, get into my clipping path and grab all of the shadows. I'm going to leave that one and name it. So this is left edge shadow. Okay, and this one is that one. And so I'm going to take that one and that one, and I'm going to lighten them up just a little bit here because I still want those shadows, but I just don't want that drastic change that we were getting. Okay, so now that's looking a little bit better, but I'm seeing like dark along this edge. There's a super dark area here, and then along each of these edges it gets a little bit darker. And so I'm going to come back into there, and I'm just going to say, you know, I want kind of a dark edge here. So I'm just going to take this edge. Let's zoom back in because I'm looking super small again. Okay, so this dark edge and a little bit darker down here and down here, but not, in the middle it's less dark. So this is the darkest, second darkest, and a little bit brighter. But I can come in here and I can just grab this and I can just make something along these lines, and then I can just blur it. So let's go to apply Gaussian blur. Okay, way too much. So then I can go back into my appearance panel and click on the Gaussian blur, and I can go preview and I can drop this way back. So I want it to have an edge, but I don't want it to be like that. Okay, So then I'm just going to pull this out. Okay, and darken it up. Okay, and I always like to blend, so it just makes things work a lot better. So I'm just going to blend that down a little bit. And now I can look at that. That's dark. Okay, so now I'm just going to kind of put this along this edge here. Okay, and get that super tight. Maybe readjust the curvature. Okay, then we just drag this inside of that clip group. And I'll flip it. Quick copy. Okay, make a little adjustment here. And pull it down so it's just barely on that edge. I'm going to back it off a little bit by making it slightly brighter. Okay, then I can grab this and click and drag with my black arrow tool. And I'm just going to kind of do this. There is any number of ways to do what I'm doing right now. I'm basically just kind of looking at this and trying to get it to do what I want it to do. And so for that, I'm going to knock this back quite a bit. So we'll take that up. So it's still dark, but it's not as dark. Okay. Then over here, we've got kind of this dark area. And so I'm going to look back in here, and I'm going to grab the left edge shadow. Okay, and I'm going to bring this in. And I'm going to darken this up. I think I can probably make it brighter now. Okay, so that's pretty good. So it's probably too fuzzed out. So let's go to Gaussian blur. Let's knock that back a little bit. I want to tighten it up is what I want to do. So we can see the edge a little bit better. Too much. About like that. Okay. Then I like it down to here, so I'm going to add an anchor point there so nothing else changes. And then I want to pull this over here. Come up. Blend that in there. Okay, and then I can do the same thing up here. There's another little spot, but it seems to curve down. So add an anchor point right about here. Another anchor point right about here. And take this, move this across, pull this up, pull that down. Okay, and let's come back out. Okay, probably overdid it on that last one a little bit, so I can knock that back. And luckily I've named it, so I can just grab left edge shadow. I'm going to come in with my transparency. I'm just going to knock it down a little bit. And if you press Command H, it'll hide the edges, but keep it selected. So
Oh, thank goodness.
yeah, it makes it a lot easier to like see what's going on.
It's like I always have to select off in order to actually see what it looks like.
Right, because a lot of those lines, especially when they're black or whatever, can be super distracting. Okay, so that's that. Now, this has a level of photorealism to it because of two things that we haven't done yet. One is they don't have perfectly hard edges. So we could come in on our detail layer here and we could blur everything, right? I'm going to hold off on that because the other thing is they have edge detail. Where there's little bits, and so I can come in here like this, and let's come back over here, and I'm just going to add little bits of this edge detail, right? And so I'm going to come in like this, and I'm going to say, okay, give me this, and I'm going to go copy, paste in front, and I'm going to grab this corner with my white arrow tool. Why? What is happening right at this moment? I'm going to lock this. Let's try that again. Ah, right. This is the problem with turning off edges. Is I was like, why can't I see anything? Right, and sometimes I forget. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to brighten this up. Okay, and I can kind of do that over and over again. So copy, paste in front, eyedropper tool, grab this, white arrow tool, grab this, kind of pull this up and over. Right, and then underneath here though, it seems to get a little bit darker. So I can grab this whole thing and I can say copy, paste in front, and I'm going to go a little bit darker, and then I can cut it. So I'm just going to grab this and drag it up. Grab this and shape builder tool and just cut off these edges. And I might make that just a little bit darker so it looks like we've cast a shadow. So this is the process. This is a little tedious, but you can kind of just go through over and over and over again and just look, right? It's a little bit darker on this edge, and so that's, which one am I looking at? This one. So I can take that, and I can go copy, paste in front. I'm just going to make that slightly darker, and I'm going to add some anchor points here. Drag this down. Add an anchor point here. Drag this down. Okay, and so as we start doing that, it just kind of continues to add. So that's the one thing, is I can keep going along those lines. Then the other thing is I could take this whole thing and blur it, right? And just say, okay, so let's just kind of, we got so much blurring going on in the background, the knob details seem to kind of not work. And so you can just go to a little bit of a blur, go preview, and then just a touch. We just want to kind of fuzz the edges just a little bit. Again, Command H can be helpful, but you can't do it with the menu open. So let's go Command H here. And let's zoom out. You can also hide the bounding box. Okay, so let's go grab all those knob details, which are now selected, even though it doesn't look like it. And I can go over here, and I can grab Gaussian blur, and I can hit preview. I can go way too much, or knock it back just a little bit, and just barely get it. Kind of a lot like that. Okay. Then, as a final touch, I can come in here and I can unlock this, I can grab the main clipping path from the outside of the shape here, and let's turn everything back on so that I can actually see it again. So I'm going to go show bounding box and press Command H to show the edges. Okay, I'm going to grab this shape and I'm going to make a copy of it. And then I'm going to drag that copy up top into knob details. Okay, and then I'm going to get rid of my fill. Okay, and this is where I can kind of come inside and I can say, you know, like overall there's like a general gray thing here. So I'm just going to go like this. And I'm going to make it kind of a brighter gray. Apply Gaussian blur to it. Blend it, probably with overlay. We'll check screen as well if we need to. Okay, and then I'm going to take this. We'll turn it at a bit of an angle. Kind of put it like that. And let's put it all the way on the top.
We're going to lower the transparency.
Yeah.
So it's kind of more like a traditional shading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it's just a little bit like to kind of unify everything in that area. And I'll do another one down at the bottom here. And I'll make it black. And then lower the opacity. So I'm going to multiply on this one. And lower the opacity a lot. There's just kind of a little unification with some of those things. Maybe even just one more up here. And I'm going to change this to be like that. Make it a little bit brighter, or a little bit less transparent. And I want to fuzz it out a little bit more. So, where is that? Why do I not have my appearance panel? Thought I had an effect on there. and make this much darker.
So how do we get this all into that mask then, with it still covering up everything else? Is it because we
Yeah, so
put a
here's,
layer on the top layer film?
so remember when I grabbed this clipping path, which is the outer shape of the object, made a copy of it? So that's right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and put it on top. And then I'm going to grab each one of those things that I just added. And with that shape on top, you press Command 7 or Object Clipping Mask Make.
Yes.
And then it's on the inside like that. So that's pretty much it. And then, from there, you're just going to decide, how much or how much more you need to kind of make it, look. And it looks like, maybe a little highlight here, a little highlight there might help, little tweaks, maybe some edge stuff. But you take this and kind of add this to, watch like this, throw it in the back behind everything, which would be these two things going behind everything like this. And just grab these, go underneath. Starts to look pretty decent. So the idea is just, unfortunately, a super simple but time-consuming idea. Look at it, try to see the shapes, try to recreate those shapes, and then adjust as needed. Because usually what you see and what you think you see are two different things. And so that's pretty much it.
I guess I should come in again because I have a similar question to that, and it's with the threads up there at the top.